So now we're going to get into part 2 of the story where I had to pimp up in Dallas. But this part of the story is how I was the wrong pimp for the right 304. Hey man, my history ain't no mystery. So let's get into it. But first, wipe your feet off at the door when you step into a pimp's domain. Let's go.
But you want all this pimping you can't afford. Perform like a punk but wanna win his reward. Some suckers give you points but bitch you never scored. If you ain't paying pimping then bitch you getting ignored. Okay, I'm so sick of these.
So to recap where we left off, man, you know I done pimped up in Dallas. I done came up on that young chocolate thing from Fort Worth, Texas. Knocked her out of that DG's, Dallas Gentlemen's Club. And then I make my way with the young lady to Los Angeles, California. And the first place I put her down is Sepulveda. And we getting it in motion, right? And, you know, as Sinful to Pete told many of you about himself and myself included, you know, we didn't really come up with like a mentor per se. You know, we had older P's that we knew, that we picked up game from, but we didn't have like just a mentor where when we had dilemmas in the game, you know, dealing with, you know, young ladies, we could go to this mentor and he'll give us the solution to the issue. No, a lot of what we learned was from trial and error. And this case here is no different from that, right? So, you know, I got the young lady in California, you know, put her down on Sepulveda, first place that she gets down outside. And things is going beautifully, man. You know, she take it to the game real well. As you should be able to assume by now, this is my turnout, meaning this is someone who I'm turning out to the game. So things are going cool. You know, she take it to it, as we say, like a fish to water. And, you know, she checking it, man. She doing beautifully. She, in the words of Larry June, she doing numbers. You dig? You know, and not only is she doing numbers, but she's just a real pleasant girl. She really was a sweetheart, man. She was just, you know, a joy to be around. She had good energy. You know, she was a very classy chick, you know, mild mannered, not dramatic, not selfish, you know, very considerate, you know, like a real Texas girl. You know, Texas girls, they got that Southern hospitality, a lot of them, probably not all of them, but, you know, my experience, you know, a lot of them Texas girls got that Southern hospitality, and she was every bit of that, right? So, you know, she was cool, man, and we was, you know, touching different areas. You know, she started off on that Sepulveda, man, but we made our rounds around, man, and, you know, things was going very beautifully, man. And my partner, who I came out there with, you know, a situation that I don't know if he learned from, but even though I wasn't as seasoned as I ended up becoming, I knew better than to do this shit that he did, right? But like I told you, him and his peoples jumped on a plane with me and my peoples, so we all traveled to LA, right? So one night we all down on Sepulveda, right? And he and I didn't have a car, so, you know, we would walk the Blade. So we walking the Blade one night, and his people is approaching us, right? So, you know, and everything, and she was a cool chick too, right? She was a real cool chick, same type of thing, that Texas shit, you know what I mean? She was a real sweetheart, man, you know, doing everything he wanted her to do, get full cooperation, full surrender, all of that, right? And we walking, and like I said, she's approaching us, we approaching each other, right? And she moves to his side of the sidewalk so that she don't pass me, she passed him, right? So this shit was crazy, man. When as she passes him, he don't even look at her, he just he backhands her, right? And keep on walking. And, you know, we just kept walking, and I was just like tripping off of that. And he's like, yeah, man, you know, she all looking upside your head and everything. You know, she know damn well she ain't got no business being out of pocket, and then she gonna do it all in my face. Man, that whole crazy. Whoop, right? So, needless to say, she was out of there after that, man. I'm talking about they didn't even make it to the top of the morning, man. She ended up doing the not the Houdini, but the Houdini, man. She disappeared on that man like Houdini. You dig? So you know, and I didn't even see her looking at me. But see, this is a problem that a lot of young guys in the game have too, right? Where they try to be overtly pimpish and, you know, try to do everything super pimpish and you know, a lot of cats blow chicks like that. And he was one of those guys that blew her like that in that instance, right? But I done seen a lot of cats blow chicks like that. But I blew my chick probably not as foolishly, but not too far from that foolishly, right? So, like I said, man, everything beautiful with the chick that I got. She doing everything I want her to do and then some, man. She, you know, she's one of them chicks, like I've said before, you know, she's the type that's gonna do things for you without you, before you could even ask her to do it or tell her to do it. You know, she's doing whatever you want her to do. She's just a real lady, right? So one day she's down on Sepulveda, man, and she looking real good. She had this white outfit on, man. She had white pants with a white top with some heels on, man, and was looking real good. She had the all white on, man, and she was just looking beautiful, right? And things was going cool when the night started, right? And we got a kind of late start that night, if I remember. So she stayed down into the daytime. And this chick was like a machine, man. Like she didn't have no problem staying down. You know, she believed in 304ing. She believed in staying down. This chick would stay down 12 hours and 15 hours and 16 hours without me even telling her to. This is just what once she caught on to the game and seen what it was, she just loved staying down like that, man. And she would check it, you know, because at this time, Sepulveda was like how y'all see Fig nowadays, where it be a bunch of girls. This is how Sepulveda was back then, right? So again, we talking about 2009. So you know, she got this white outfit on, everything cool, she doing good. And then all of a sudden she starts her monthly thing kicks in, right? So, you know, me being overtly pimpish, I'm like, yeah, you know, you can stay down a little bit longer, whoop, right? So I made her stay down, and she did it with no problem. And then, you know, it started getting worse, and she calling me, and she like, you know, I ain't trying to complain, but, you know, I really need to take care of this, whoop. And I'm like, well, how much money you got? And that's one of the biggest mistakes you could do, right? Make, right? As a young P. I'm like, how much money you got? She told me, and I wasn't satisfied with what she said she had. So I'm like, bitch, I don't care, you know, what's going on. You know, you need to get my issue, and whoop, right? So she stayed down. And do you know, it was embarrassing on her part, I'm sure. But, you know, me, I was just young and dumb, and I was inconsiderate of the fact that this is still a woman. You know, I was treating her like a machine. I was treating her like a robot. And I was inconsiderate of the fact that this is a woman, one, and then two, a woman that I turned out, right? And, you know, she gave me her full cooperation. She trusted me to take care of her. You know, this young girl, she done came cross country with me to a place where she ain't never been before. And she trusted me, right? And she was vulnerable to me, and I didn't handle that I mishandled that, right? So I go scoop her up, and, you know, she done bled all onto the white outfit, and it, you know, it ain't looking cool, man. But me being overtly super pimpish, you know, I made her change clothes and get right back down. And I wasn't thinking about the fact that, you know, like what she had went through and how that might have affected her and how that might have made her feel. You know, I was inconsiderate of that. So, you know, she ended up getting back down and everything like that. But that was just the beginning of the end. You know, now she went from this sweetheart to like now she got a bitterness towards me. And at the time I didn't understand it, but of course now I perfectly understand it, right? It makes perfect sense. But me, I was just so caught up in my ego that I was blinded to the point where I couldn't even see what, you know, why she was being the way she was being. So now this sweet young chick who never got an attitude, now she's starting to get attitude with me. You know, she certain problems that I never had out of her, now all of a sudden I'm starting to have these problems, right? So you know, she had some family out there in California. Her grandmother was out there. Her grandmother was living in a home though. We even went to go see her grandmother. She was living in a home. I want to say it was like in Pasadena or somewhere out there, like San Gabriel Valley area, right? But she had an uncle out there too. And we went and met with her uncle, had lunch with him one time. He was cool. But you know, she had an out, is what I'm saying. You know, by her having an uncle out there, she had somewhere to go. So one day she ended up, you know, going over there with her uncle, and you know, that was that. And the thing about it, right, as I look back at it, you know, I was just being so super pimpish, you know, to the point where I was a fool. I was stupid, right? Because she didn't just blow. She didn't just like disappear. You know, she blew in a way where she was trying to get me. She was trying to see if I wanted her. That's all she wanted to see, was that I really wanted her. And if I would have showed her that I wanted her to stay, she would have stayed. But again, me on some overt pimpish, like super, you know, foolishly pimpish shit, and treating her like she a robot and treating her like she disposable. I'm just like, you know. So once I showed her that I didn't care if she stayed or went, you know, that broke her spirit even more. And then she ended up, you know, going with her uncle, right? Now, everything worked out the way it was supposed to. As foolish as I was, I believe I was supposed to be foolish with her in particular, because as I told you in the first part of the story, she was a full-time student at Texas A&M, and I had taken her away from that. When she was supposed to start that next semester, she was in California with me, you know, running it up, when she really should have been back over there in Texas. And, you know, we should have worked our way around that. If we was going to continue, we should have worked our way around her school schedule and figured something out that way. But me and my selfishness and my ego, again, like I said, I thought that was something, you know, noteworthy. I thought that was like an accomplishment, to convince this girl to put school on hold and come be down with me in the game. You know, I thought that was something remarkable, but the me now understands that was unwise. That was foolish, right? So that's why I say, fortunately, things worked out the way that they did so that she can go back to school. And I never kept up with her like that. We were still friends on Facebook for a little while, but I didn't really keep up with her like that, again, because of my ego. But I would imagine that she went back to Texas, went back to school, graduated, started a career, probably started a family, you know, because she was really a good girl. She was a sweetheart, right? So, but I learned some valuable lessons in that experience, needless to say. For one of the main things I learned, and I have this in my personal constitution. If you haven't seen my video on my personal constitution, go check it out. But one of the principles on my personal constitution is to appreciate people above things in all things. And that's what I learned from that experience, right? I learned to appreciate people above things. When I had her, you know, I didn't appreciate her, the person, above the things, the money, and you know, the surrender, the cooperation, you know, the catering and to me and all of that. You know, I appreciated those things more than I appreciated her as a human being and as a woman, right? And like I say, fortunately it played out the way that it did early on because we was only rocking for a few months. So, you know, it wasn't a whole lot of damage done to the point where her life was ruined or my life was ruined, you know. And just like I learned some things from that, I'm pretty sure she learned some things from that too, right? But you know, it was good that I learned the things that I learned from that, because it made me a better man. And you know, moving forward, I was more responsible with how I dealt with women. And you know, when I had good women in my life moving forward, it made me be on my best behavior, right? Because I didn't want to undermine the human that I was dealing with, the woman that I was dealing with, right? For the sake of, you know, possessions and money and, you know, status and things like that, right? So, yeah, man, that was a case where I was the wrong pimp for the right 304, because she definitely was the right 304. And, you know, like I said, had I been the right pimp, you know, ain't no telling what we could have did while she still, you know, was doing what she was supposed to do, which was go to school. And, you know, hey man, the game has no bounds. The game is boundless. The game is limitless. So ain't no telling what we could have did, right? But, you know, blessings to that young lady, and, you know, blessings to the game. Let that marinate on your mind one time. Freezes it. Go ahead, put some of this good old love in your body like so. And of course, as always, long live the incomparable Sinful to P. We out. Dig this. I've been stroking relentless to get waves like this. I spoke into existence for her to pay like this. In the trenches on a day like this, traffic consistent, and so I have to insist that she relay my chips. It's a trap with her name on it and my game on it. Any forces coming against this game, shame on it. Standing on my pimpin' from day one and remain on it. It carried me through every terrain and I gained on it. Experience joy and pain on it, sustained on it.
But getting back to this game that I never left.
Baby, yeah, where you been?